On Friday night, this past Friday night, federal agents showed up on the doorstep of several reporters for the New York Times, showed up at their homes. The agents served the reporters with subpoenas that order them to testify to a federal grand jury this week, the day after tomorrow, on Wednesday, about their sources. According to the Times, the subpoenas demand that the reporters testify, quote, in regard to an alleged violation of federal criminal law. Now, what's this about? I do not in any way want to diminish the importance of or the quality of the New York Times coverage that sent the White House into this freak-out subpoena, mandatory testimony, give up your sources or go to jail mode. But this whole thing appears to be about something the Times reported that doesn't exactly appear to be the world's most tightly held state secret. Again, not diminishing at all what the Times has accomplished with this story, but this is what it was. On Thursday, the Times reported on the new plane the government of Qatar gave President Trump, the plane he is now using as Air Force One. Officials who have been briefed on the retrofitting of that plane told the Times that the new plane lacks some of the defensive countermeasures found on the other Air Force One aircraft. Specifically, stuff like this. This is the Directional Infrared Countermeasure System, which jams any incoming heat-seeking missiles to divert them away so they don't hit the plane. This system is not a big secret. This animation that I'm showing you here, this little pew-pew laser animation, this is on Northrop Grumman's publicly accessible YouTube page, which tells you all about it, including where exactly on the plane you should look if you want to see the parts of this system that tell you whether or not the plane is equipped with this thing. They show you where the sensors and stuff are and what they look like. This is publicly available, commercially advertised information. The Times reported that while different parts of that defensive system were visible to the sort of trained eye on the old Air Force One, on the new Air Force One, you can't see those parts. Photographs of the new plane indicate that those same sensors and things aren't there. It's a visible to the naked eye anti-missile system. You can see it on the old plane. You can't see it on the new plane. And that is great reporting from the New York Times. But it is also not exactly, cracking the Enigma code. It's like one of these things is not like the other. That said, Trump has freaked out about this reporting, and so reporters from the New York Times got subpoenas at their homes late on Friday night. They're being told they must effectively give up their sources by Wednesday to a grand jury or else. The top lawyer for the Times saying in response, quote, the appearance of federal law enforcement agents on the doorstep of news reporters should shock the conscience of any American who believes in the Constitution and the press freedom that it protects. Should shock the conscience. Well, now the question becomes how to defend these reporters, how to keep them out of jail, and how to keep them from having to give up their sources. How best to fight this? Joining us now is one of America's legendary First Amendment lawyers, who, full disclosure, is also my lawyer. Ted Boutros does not represent the New York Times in this matter, although he does represent the Times and a number of other media organizations in several suits against the Trump administration and their attacks on the free press. Ted, Mr. Boutros, thank you so much for making time to be here tonight. I know how busy you are.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel, to talk about these important issues. They really are important.
How out of bounds are these subpoenas? Will the Times likely be able, at least, to challenge them effectively in court? Or do you think that this is going to come to a head before a grand jury on Wednesday?
The Times has many, many strong arguments. These subpoenas are way out of bounds. They depart from basically every norm, every practice. The Justice Department has had guidelines in place since the Nixon administration. John Mitchell put them in place to protect journalists and to make sure that the Justice Department didn't do what they just did on Friday, which is to subpoena reporters for their source information before investigating further. And the famous case of Branzburg versus Hayes from the Supreme Court said there wasn't some automatic First Amendment protection of sources, but it said harassment, bad faith use of subpoenas to try to intimidate reporters, to try to intimidate sources. And that's what's going on here. So I think the Times will likely go in with a motion to quash before Wednesday, and the judge will let them brief those issues, and I think will quash these subpoenas. The other thing, Rachel, the Justice Department doesn't usually send the FBI to reporters' homes. There was no need to do it. Gratuitous, vindictive, intimidation, retaliatory for reporting on important public issues. So I think they've got great arguments, and they should win.
You know, the way they served the subpoenas struck me as sort of an obvious intimidation effort. Also, the fact that the FBI director was sort of bragging on social media about, you know, what he was about to do to the news media. It all seemed to me to be sort of gratuitous and intimidating on purpose. But the other part of this that kind of got my hackles up was the short time frame, right? That they got these subpoenas on Friday night. They're told they have to be in front of the grand jury on Wednesday morning. It raised the question for me as to whether we're sure that the courts can act quickly enough. If they do have a chance of getting these subpoenas quashed, can the courts act quickly enough to do it?
You were absolutely right that was another flashing red light, that something's wrong here, that things have gone off the rails, that the testimony is supposed to happen Wednesday. There's no need for that. This wasn't some emergency. I do think the court will be able to act quickly enough. The court can step in and say, we're postponing, or the subpoenas are not going to be enforced. We're going to hear briefing on this. But that was their tactic. They're hoping to try to rush it through. I don't think that the district judges in the Southern District of New York will let that happen. It's just too over the top. And, you know, the Supreme Court in recent years, including in this first choice decision this year, talked about the First Amendment right to publish, the First Amendment right to associate, and the subpoenas can interfere with that in much different contexts. But those principles apply here. What they're trying to do is dry up information to the American people so the American people can figure out what's happening and to serve as a check on abuse of power. And also here, Rachel, the reporting is supportive of national security and safety. They're reporting about a potential security problem that needs to be fixed to protect the President of the United States. So it's really just a transparent effort to intimidate and harass, rush it through, as you're suggesting.
The transparency of it, I think, is actually one of the things that I guess makes me feel not confident, but I guess reassured that this can be quashed, that this can be stopped. I will say I'm also heartened to see the Times punching back so hard, not giving an inch and saying that there's no way they're going to let their reporters go through this. Having you to talk to about this is also very comforting to me. First Amendment lawyer Ted Boutros. Ted, thank you for your time tonight. We'll check back in with you as this case proceeds. I really appreciate you making time.
Thanks so much, Rachel.